All right, so this week I'm super slammed, just how it goes some weeks, so getting a YouTube video together has been a little tough. So instead of trying to make that difficult for myself, I decided to instead just kind of take you along with me as I work on one of the projects. And that specific project that I'm talking about is gig preparation. So on May 30th, I will be backing Jen Blossel. If you don't know who Jen Blossel is, she was on American Idol. She's got a few records out, doing really well. Killer voice, really fun personality. Go check her out. But she has a gig on May 30th, and I have been asked to be one of the guitarists in her band. So I decided to make a video on gig preparation and what, in my opinion, is the absolute best way to prepare for a gig. Basically, this video is broken into two categories. We have general philosophy about gig preparation and then preparation for this specific gig that you'll see in some video footage of me working and preparing. So let's get into it. The first of these general philosophies comes to me from Sam Carden. So Sam Carden was somewhat of a mentor to me when I was still in school. He is a professional film scorer and producer. He's actually an Emmy Award-winning composer and producer. He's worked on quite a few IMAX documentaries, as well as he has scored video games. I believe the two most popular video games that he's scored are World of Warcraft Mists of Pandaria or Pandaria. Don't know how to pronounce that, as well as Overwatch. In addition to that, he has produced themes for ABC, CBS, TNT, National Geographic, ESPN, and those are still being played on a regular basis. So this guy's been working in the industry for quite a while, and something that he promised me early on was that if I did my absolute best on every gig that I received, regardless of the pay, there would always be another gig at the end of it. Now, I have learned that it doesn't always come exactly the way that you expect it, but there always seems to be another gig after every one of these instances where I put in my full effort. I, however, have decided to double down on this concept and kind of make it the sole focus of my mindset. And I personally think about it like this. Whatever I'm being hired to do, if I'm being hired to arrange a piece of music, record something, produce something, play a gig, whatever it is, I want to do so well that the people who hired me miss me when they have to do it again without me. The gig in question actually comes from me teching for the other guitarist in one of his other projects. I teched for him, and rather than just show up and take care of him, I decided to show up early. I helped the drummer load in, I helped the bassist load in, I made sure that all of his guitars were set up, tuned, cleaned, everything was taken care of, and I did that so that they don't have to worry about it, and so that the next show he plays when he doesn't have a tech, he wishes I was there. And it formed a working relationship that, as you can tell, still continues to this day, and seems to be working out pretty nicely. The second philosophy has to do with the power of preparation. Last week, I made a video explaining how guitar exists in a world where our tradition, or the way information is passed to and from people, is what's called an oral tradition or an oral tradition. And if you didn't get the chance to watch that video, you can watch it here. But the basic gist of it is, most of the time, we're not really writing as much music down as we used to. Instead, what happens is when somebody goes into the studio to create a piece of music, they usually just start adding layers and doing things and different guitar parts or whatever, and then it sounds cool, and then they leave it there. They never really write down all the individual pieces. So it's important to me to go into a gig having listened to the record and knowing what's coming and what my guitar part should be. Now, the standard that I hold myself to of the level of preparation that I desire to have by the time I show up for that first practice comes from a documentary called How to Grow a Band, which is about Punch Brothers. If you don't know who Punch Brothers are, they are to bluegrass what Them Crooked Vultures are to rock. They're a bluegrass supergroup. And in this documentary, what happens is they show that they released their first album with a bassist, and then he decided to leave the project. And so they were looking for a new bassist. They had heard about this guy who at the time was 18 years old. I think he had just gotten into Juilliard, but he was somewhat of a prodigy. And they invited him to come audition for the band. And the thing that blew them away the most was that when he showed up, he not only knew the songs, but he already had all of his parts memorized. So that's what I try to do. Back in 2021, I had the opportunity to sub with a band called Michael Barrow and the Tourists. Now, if you've been here for a while, you know that that is now the band that I am a part of and that I play with fairly regularly. But back then, they needed a sub. It was very last minute. The gig was on Friday. They called me on Monday and said, the only practice we can have this week is on Tuesday. So between Monday and Tuesday night and all my other jobs and things that I was working on, I sat down with the set list and I went through and memorized as much as I could. And by the time I showed up to the rehearsal on Tuesday evening, I was about 90% memorized. Needless to say, a few months later, that level of professionalism proved to them who I was and what I was about, and they asked me to join the band. I ended up touring with them, and they're some of my best buds now today. The final philosophy is one that honestly applies to gigs, sessions, and life in general. I've made a more in-depth video on it that you can watch here, but this comes to us from Corey Christiansen, who is the current guitar teacher at Utah State. Great dude. And these are his 5 rules to take luck out of the equation. Number 1, be good at what you do. Number 2, be on time. Number 3, be adaptable. Number 4, be a good hang. And number 5, wear the right clothes. So now,
let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
Now what you can see in this video is I'm actually writing out my own chord charts. What they usually have are the chords of the songs, a general outline, and any riffs or licks that are in the record that need to be added in. Now, like I said, I try to be off book by the time the first practice comes up, but just in case, I like to make these, scan them, and keep them on my phone just in case I need to refer back to them at any point. Not only that, the act of actively listening, transcribing, writing it all down, all that jazz, helps me memorize the songs faster than just about any other technique that I've tried. And that's really probably the main reason why I do it, is because it just helps me memorize the songs, especially when they're an artist that I haven't necessarily listened to and I'm unfamiliar with their tunes. Number 2, what you can see here is once I get all the basic bits down, I sit down at my pedal board and I work out all the sounds. I tweak everything to make sure that I'm fit for this gig. Now that could mean that I take some pedals off, put other pedals on. In this case, I didn't really have to actually do any of that. However, a lot of Jen's tunes have a lot of wacky, fun stuff in them and some synth textures. So I kind of went a little bit further into my HX Stomp and pulled out a lot of fun filters and modulation effects like rotary, tremolo. There's some octave synth stuff on there as well that's pretty fun. And I also used the Generation Lost by Chase Bliss to create some failed tape textures that I can hear in the back of her songs. If we tie this all back to my original philosophy, I want to show up to the practice and have them not even be remotely worried about me as a player. I want them to focus on what they have to do. They shouldn't have to worry about me. So why? That's the big question in all this. Why do I put in so much effort? First off, I don't think it's that much effort. I think it's the bare minimum. I think everyone should be doing this when they gig. Sorry, hot take, maybe not a hot take. There are probably some of you sitting there right now like, this is all stuff that I'm already doing, which is great. Keep doing it. But number 1, honestly, the more I treat gigs like this, the easier it becomes to treat gigs like this. The faster I get at transcribing, the faster I get at my process, and the better guitarist I become. Number 2, it all goes back to that governing philosophy. I want them to miss me when I'm not there. I want them to regret not hiring me if they choose to not hire me again. I want to be the first one they call. And number 3, it's probably a little bit fueled by insecurity. I have never been the world's greatest guitarist, and I don't think I ever will be. I'm obviously good enough, competent enough that I taught at a university, I get hired, and I'm able to make a living doing this. But I think back to my school days where the other guitarists in the program were so much better than me, especially in the beginning. I had to work really hard to just keep up with them. And then, eventually I got better and it was great. But I also learned that that's really only about 30 to 40% of the equation. You see, almost all of those guys who were better than me either don't work in the music industry after graduating or they dropped out before they even got to graduation. How hard you work, how much effort you put in, and how much people like working with you matters more than how well you play. I will die on that hill. So here I am, a trusty old 2006 Corolla, nice and worn in, gets you from point A to point B, does every job you need it to do, and is so reliable, and it will never die. I'm honestly perfectly content to be that guitarist. But talk to me down in the comments. Let me know, what are your philosophies that help you prepare for a gig? What's something that you did that changed the way you look at gigs? Love to hear from you guys. As usual, thank you guys so much for being a part of the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching and you have not liked or subscribed, please do so. Stick around. There's always fun and interesting things happening over here, or at least they're fun and interesting to me. My name is Mac Wright. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please go make someone else's day better, and we will see you around.